Hello, sewing friends. Thanks for visiting the TurboPurr channel, where we love the sound of happy cats and smooth running sewing and crafting machines. Today, I'll be demonstrating how to convert part of an embroidery design and turn it into a cutting file in SVG or FCM format for appliques. I'll be using the Floriani FTCU software. This video is for entertainment purposes only. Enjoy. These are the supplies that I've been using. And we will be creating 3 files. An SVG or FCM digital cutting machine file to cut the applique fabric with. FCM file format is used with Brother ScanNcut machines. The ScanNcut will also use SVG files. I personally have a Brother ScanNcut machine, but the SVG format is also the format that Cricut uses as well. A lot of my friends have the Cricut. The second type of file that we'll be talking about is the embroidery machine file. This is the stitch file that has all the stitch information, including the placement stitches for the appliques, the tack down stitches for the appliques, and finally the finishing stitches. And thirdly, the WAF master file. The WAF file format is for Floriani. Walter A. Floriani started the company for the Floriani, and so the WAF master file is only used within the software, and it is very helpful to have this as far as resizing and using it later on with any type of digitizing. It's very important to run a test, and after a test, if you find that things need to be changed, then it's best to use the WAF master file and make the changes and then save to sew again as an embroidery machine file and retest as needed. So the first step is to select an embroidery design with parts of it that you would like to convert to an applique for a digital cutting machine. And in this example, I have selected one of the free designs that's in the Floriani software. And this is a small rabbit design. I'm using this just because I thought it was a good example. And as far as selecting the parts to convert to applique for digital cutting, I am selecting the bunny rabbit's tummy and the pale pink portion of his ears to convert to applique. There is more than one way to convert parts to applique. One of the icons at the bottom of the screen is for converting to applique. There are multiple ways to select segments to convert. In this example, I'm going to be showing you a simple way to do it that I like to do just for clarity. But please know that there's more than one way to do things in most softwares. Also, if you have a different type of software, check and see whether there is an option to save as an SVG or FCM format, because now many of the softwares do offer that flexibility. In this example, I have selected 3D, which shows the selected design as a embroidery to give you a little bit better idea. And when you click the segment to select it, there's more than one way to select it. You can click the selection arrow, which is highlighted in yellow on the left, and then click on the screen to select the segment, or you can select the segment under the sequence view. Notice that the selected segment is turned bright blue, and that also under the sequence view, it's also bright blue, indicating that it has been selected. From here, we need to make a copy of the selected segment that we want to convert into an applique for a cutting machine. So I like to hold down the Control key on the keyboard and then tap the letter C to copy. And then from here, we're going to create a new file window. So we click File and New. And notice when you do this, it brings you into a blank screen. I've circled Design 2 in red, so the bunny rabbit was in Design 1, and we have a new window which is Design 2, and I've pasted the selected parts that I want to convert to applique into this screen. From here, when you click to select, everything is highlighted in blue. And this is one of Floriani's one-click wonders. When you hover over the icons, it tells you what the icon is. And so hovering over this, it tells you that when you click this, the selected portion is converted to artwork. And here, I've right-click on Properties to bring up the Properties box. Notice that the objects on the screen, the ear and the tummy, are not filled. And that is because the Properties box has a blank, it defaults to a blank fill box. So when you click to fill it with a color and apply to make the changes, the objects are filled with color so that you can see them more easily. So here we have the parts of the bunny rabbit that have been converted to artwork, which we will save a little bit later and export as an FCM or SVG file. But here, I need to make these portions for the applique a little bit bigger. I prefer to work in millimeters, and I usually increase by the width by a couple of millimeters. By changing the aspect ratio, it keeps everything proportional. And it's important to have your applique be increased a little bit, because when you tack down your applique fabric, it needs to be a little bit wider than what your stitching is. What can happen is if your appliques are not big enough, they won't get caught in the tack down stitching, and you end up having a problem, and your appliques can end up getting not caught enough in the stitching. So there needs to be some margin of fabric around the outside of the tack down stitching so that all your fabric is tacked down securely. So from here, you have options for saving, and because this is artwork and we want to export it to a digital cutting machine, you'll notice that the SVG file option is formatted or is highlighted in blue, and beneath that there's an option for selecting to save the file as a FCM file for the Brother ScanNcut machine. So you would save your files, and here we've gone back to design 1, which is the embroidery design, which will ultimately save as a embroidery machine file to be stitched out. But we need to do a few things with this. So we need to have a placement stitch, which shows you where to place your fabric for the applique. We'll need a second stitching in a different color to do a tack down, and changing the colors makes the machine stop so that you can put the fabric down, and then the machine needs to stop again so that the final stitching, the satin stitching, can go around and finish the appliques. So in this screen, you'll see that I have selected the parts of the bunny rabbit, the tummy and the pale pink on the ears, and clicked on run, and that converts this to a run stitch. So here in the sequence view, it shows that the brighter pink part of the bunny rabbit will stitch first, and then an outlines of where the appliques go will stitch next. And we would copy and paste this segment and then change the color of the duplicate segment and drag that color up beneath into the third position. So this would be the tack down stitch for the appliques. Here is some more information about that. And from here, we still need the finishing stitches. So these outlines for the appliques have been copied and pasted again. And again, I've dragged and dropped these up so that they are stitching out before the details in the face, and clicked on the steel stitch option to convert these parts to a finishing stitch on the applique. If you right click on the selection and bring up the properties box, you have options to change the width and the density and the corner type and the other parameters. Normally, I like to have a width of at least 2.5, preferably 3 millimeters on the width of the satin stitching. Because this is such a small embroidery design and I'm doing this for illustration purposes, it's at a much narrower width. If I was going to stitch this out, I would prefer to stitch it out at a larger size. Again, we are still in design screen number 1, and it's important to save to sew and follow the wizard in save to sew to save to the embroidery format that your machine likes the best. and then you can stitch your design. A couple things I wanted to mention here is that if you wanted, you could take parts of the design and convert them to artwork, and then instead of stitching it out, you could use these as vinyl, um, layered vinyl designs, and you could make the bunny rabbit in layered vinyl in different colors. So there's lots of options for things to do when you have an SVG file. And it's really a lot of fun, and you can get really creative with it. So to finish, we have 3 files. We have the digital cutting machine file in SVG or FCM. We have the embroidery machine file, which is the stitch file. And then we have the WAF master file in Floriani. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to hear about what you've been stitching in the comments. Thank you, and have a great day.